Alrighty. So today we'll have a brief introduction. We have how many people here? 12. So we should be able to go around and share briefly a little bit about ourselves. Then we'll have a presentation, two actually, from the County of Hawaii. We have Leslie Nugent with us and for Anna Ezzy, who isn't able to make it after all. And then we have Patrick Williams here as well with CTAHR to discuss about the community engagement and communication work on CTAHR. And then we'll have time at the end for member updates and then closing. And I can be on if there is some spillover conversation. I'll keep the Zoom open after the call for about 30 minutes for anyone who wants to stay on later. All right. So if you, oh, I think this was the prompt that we used last time. I didn't update it. So that's okay. I think it's a good one, and we can always bring something different to the room because there's different people here today. Um, but I would like to ask you all to share, to change your Zoom name to your name and your organization pronouns um, if you'd like, and then we'll go around the room and send it off to one another after we finish sharing. To answer this question, what's one smell that instantly brings you to a place in your memory? This is something Ati first brought to my attention. I think it's a great prompt. And I will start. I've already introduced myself, but one smell that brings me to an instant place in my memory is coffee. I was a barista for about a year and would go into the back room and open up a fresh bag and just stick my nose in there and love the smell of a freshly opened bag of coffee beans. Um, and I continue to do that to this day, and even this morning. I will pass it over to Ati.
Hi, thanks, and welcome everyone. T. Jeffers Farber, I work with the National Park Service RTCA programs, Meredith. I thought, it's coming up the season, so I thought the smell of mango, it just the anticipation of the sweet, luscious fruit that's inside, a nice ripe mango. Yeah, so that's my smell for today. How about Patrick?
Yes, I'm Patrick. I work over at the College of Tropical Ag. One smell that always gets me would be uh, peanut butter toast. When you get the toast when you take it out of the toaster and it's all hot, you put that peanut butter on it and it gets all kind of melty and runny and gooey. Oh, that's the best. Oh, and I will pass this over to Kate.
Hi, my name is Kate Eichstead with the Department of Parks and Recreation. I'm the Community Gardens Coordinator. Um, I I instantly thought I was just on the mainland last week and lilacs were in bloom. And it was a smell I haven't probably smelled in a 12, 11 years. So um, I took a big sniff and really enjoyed that. And I'll pass it to Emma.
Hi, I'm Emma Waters. I work for the Hawaii Public Health Institute over here on the Hawaii Island. And one smell I guess would be like puakeni. I used to have a tree at a house I lived at, and it's such a wonderful smell. So it takes me back to all the wonderful times that I've gotten to smell that. And I will pass it over to Alice.
Thank you, Emma. I'm Alice Liu from Hawaii Public Health Institute, Food Systems Program Manager. It is so funny because I was just thinking about Puakinikini with Leslie because whenever I see it's one of my favorite lei flowers, and whenever I see it, I think about people who are really, really crafty and makes amazing leis, and just in general, great people. Yep, I would say today's smell is Puakinikini, and I will popcorn to Leslie.
Thank you so much. I know as I was driving around today with my coworker, Sarah, we were pointing out all the puakinikini in bloom. So beautiful. But since that's been highlighted, I will also share one memory. Um, is like the smell of sort of like the moss that grows near like fresh water or kind of like the wet rocks when the stream is flowing. That's one of my favorite smells that brings me back to just a sense of peace and some of my earliest memories. Thank you for the question, and I will pass it to Alan.
Everyone. Um, uh, RTCA, I'm with RTCA with Octavia and Meredith. I have a different answer than last time, and I think it's the smell of chorizo and potato. It's a breakfast dish that my mom would make, Mexican breakfast dish, and it's relatively simple to make, but for whatever reason, I've never been able to do so. This reminds me a lot of growing up and missing that Mexican food. I don't get a lot of it in Seattle. Yeah, that's my memory. Um, Alice, have you? No, Alice, you did go. Who's left? Oh, Meredith.
Go. Aloha. I'm Meredith Spiker, and I'm also with National Park Service, RTCA. And I love this one. And but as everyone was talking, I was like, what is my smell? Um, and I have to say, when I have seen a picture of lilacs recently, and that just brought me back because it's that time of year where I think that they are starting to bloom, and that brings a huge memory to me because I grew up in Massachusetts and they'd be all around, and it just is a smell of spring and like change. So I always like that smell. So thank you. And I think I'm the last one, but if anyone else hasn't gone.
Alice put in the chat that last few people.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Alice.
Anya. Yeah, I need to change my Zoom screen so I can see everyone.
The smell that I'm thinking of is a forest smell. And of course, every forest is a little bit different. But kind of think of like the moisture and probably the leaf litter kind of decomposing. And now I need to learn more about exactly what all those smells are. But I forget about it until I go back, hiking or whatever, and then think, oh, this, just very relaxing and kind of taking a moment to just take in all the calm things in the forest. So that's the forest smell. I will send it over to Grace.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute. I'm Grace, and I am a Master Gardener trainee on Oahu this year, and I'm super passionate about food security. And so love to learn everything that's going on and where I can potentially pitch in and help. And my smell is Chanel #5, which is the perfume that my mother wore the whole time I was growing up. So it always just brings me memories of her and growing up and all the fun family stuff we used to do. And let's see, so Kauai, or I think is next.
Aloha, everyone. My name is Kavehi. I'm with Pear Suite Operations Manager. I've worked with Alice in the past. I'm happy to be here. It's been a while since I was able to join the Hui, so mahalo for keeping me on the invite, Anna. A smell, I'm kind of going between saying either Maile, and the reason I think of Maile is we just finished Merry Monarch last week, and as much as I wish I had been able to go, I didn't get a chance to, but as a child, that Maile is just, it's a very familiar smell if you grew up dancing hula and making lei and special occasions, and that's really what it, but the second smell I was also really kind of thinking about is that the smell of the ocean when you're kind of approaching the beach, so that that sea spray, and it's a very faint, like when the trade winds are coming through, and yeah, you get a hint of that salt. I just love it. And I believe Aiko is the last.
Hello, it's good to meet everybody. And hello in so long, Ati. I finally made it to the meeting. My name is Aiko Kawakami, she, her. I work for Malama Learning Center. And we do like agroforestry as well as like restoration sites. So I'm here to learn more. And then I was thinking about my smell, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to it, but my childhood summers were spent in Kalihi at a family restaurant before. And actually, it's the same apartment I live in. And right behind me is a tofu factory. So every now and then I get this really nostalgic smell of them actually cooking the soy milk and making tofu. And it instantly brings me back to childhood and running through the restaurant with the flatbed carts and loading ice. And it just reminds me and brings me back to summer with my grandma. Thank you.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And nice to meet you, Aiko. Thanks for being here, even though it looks like you've got a lot of work to do. Just appreciate everyone showing up today and sharing your smells. It's a good way to get to know one another. And Leslie, I've made you a co-host. So if you're interested in sharing screen, you have about 30 minutes, including Q&A before we move on to the next presentation discussion. So I might send you messages in case time is moving faster than we'd want. So just keep an eye out for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I realized that I was so excited about Puakinikini and other childhood memories that I didn't fully introduce myself. So glad I have this chance again here. My name is Leslie Nugent, and I work with the County of Hawaii on our agriculture and food systems team. In our county, that lands in the Department of Research and Development, which for Hawaii County is really our economic development department. And yeah, my coworker, Anna Ezzi, I know she's much more active in this group. However, we work really closely as a team. So when she asked if I could jump in today and share a little bit, I was really happy to. Some of you on this call, I know Alice and Emma will be more familiar with what I'm going to share about our county planning process for our agri-food system. But many of you on the call, it's my first time meeting you, so it's so nice to be here, and thank you for having me. Let's see, I'm going to try to share my screen here and have a little presentation. Thanks for bearing with me. Just give me one moment, please. Okay, let's see. Sorry, I'm always like, which is the right view that I want? Okay, let's just see if I present. Okay, I think we're going to do this. Can folks see this? I know you can see my other stuff on my tabs here. I'm not sure if I can make it just a full screen or what.
That's okay. It looks good
Yeah,
to me.
looks good. Okay, cool. So I'm going to share a little bit about where our county is at in our planning process. We're working on developing a 5-year agri-food system plan. that encompasses all aspects of our food system, from soil to seed to our tables to our community distribution sites and all of the different avenues that it takes to kind of get there. The last time our county had a plan for agriculture and food systems, I think it was really maybe just calling it agriculture plan then, was 2010. So it's kind of quite time that we have this opportunity to revise. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so a big goal of ours in this plan is, oops, I went too fast. Okay. Okay. A big goal of ours is to really cultivate kind of reciprocity and resilience and principles of regeneration as we develop this plan. So we're really focusing on being as collaborative really as we can between our county team, but also nonprofit partners, industries, producers, communities, kind of all different elements of the value chain. And this plan, we hope to identify goals and initiatives and actions kind of across the spectrum. A big reason, I know there's like lots of planning, and we don't want to be just another plan that kind of sits on the shelf, but we know that working within these systems that we do, such as the county, and that impact so many people in our community, that our decision makers really want to see sort of plans and have information lined out in a way where they can really receive it and make decisions on that. So we're trying to lift up the voices of our community and our stakeholders so that they're heard on any county level planning processes, and that our decision makers have that information sort of with as much integrity from our community and our producers and consumers as we can. So in this plan process, we're really collaborating with a couple partners. The funding for this process, this was a process that the county was wanting to execute anyway, but with some support from the ARPA funds, sort of those COVID relief funds that came through the county, our county was able to put over $5 million of those funds into our food system. So that includes things like upgrading certified kitchens, which maybe I can share a little bit more later, and some direct support for producers, some support for our different service providers that provide for community food security, like our pantries or our different food distribution avenues, a little bit of resource for some inputs that they might need. And then another component of that ARPA funding went to support this plan development. And so in that, we've collaborated really closely with the Hamakua Institute and the Food Basket. And the Food Basket is our island's food bank. And we're really fortunate to have a 30-member advisory committee representing different elements of our food system, as well as just a lot of community collaboration and engagement. So thanks to everyone who's participated so far, and to all those who still will. We'll give a chance for that today. And as I said, we're really wanting the purpose of this plan to really identify those strategies and investments to increase, our agriculture production, food security, and access to local food and agricultural products. So we're hopeful that by having a plan that's informed by our community, that we can really inform and advocate for investment into our food system. As I said, we're really focused on trying to be collaborative as we can and take that approach to just bring as many voices to the table. And we know that some of the work that we've done, previously has shown just the real challenges for economic viability within agriculture. So we're really hoping to foster just more economic resilience as one of the aspects too. So we're guided by some principles in our planning process here, and we don't have big descriptions of those here, but we do other places. So if you're interested, I'll surely share my contact. But it will definitely come out in our plan as well. And so all aspects of what's going into the plan are really being viewed through these lenses. You can see them here on the screen, but biocultural stewardship, climate resilience, community food security, circular and regenerative economy, equity, producer and worker support infrastructure, trying to be honoring cultural heritage, factoring in climate resiliency, and trying to be as producer and practitioner centered as we can. So these were developed with the support of our advisory committee and are just helping to ground our work as we move through this process. So when we talk about agri-food systems, we've used the language like agriculture and food systems, or anyway, there's lots of language out there that we can use. So we've adopted the agri-food systems language, which really encompasses the full scope and scale of producers, the value chains, the market systems, and the commodities. So really looking at it as an integrated system. And trying to kind of reduce the gap between agriculture being one thing and food systems being another, but really we're kind of all part of the same. So we're using that kind of unified language. And then a big portion of the plan is also around community food security, which feels really relevant to the focus of Hui Māla and the work that folks, I'm not sure what everyone does on the call, but I know there's a lot centered around community gardens and shared garden spaces and perhaps even backyard gardening, and really just some of those systems of resilience and sharing and growing our own, and those kinds of ways of caring for ourselves and each other. And so, and sharing as a huge part of that too, right? So for the community food security, really looking at addressing kind of some of the underlying causes of food insecurity. We know we've all heard the numbers and we all see it in our communities. And of course, there's great reports from the Hawaii Food Bank, but in those we see that, Hawaii County has the largest reported numbers of food insecurity, with over, almost a third of our population struggling with food insecurity. So we're really wanting to work towards the vision where all people have access to affordable, nutritious, and culturally appropriate food. So that's been a big focus of this planning process as well. And in this process, here's a little timeline at the top here. So for about the last year or so, we've been kind of doing some foundational work, getting really clear on those guiding principles and what's our focus and how we're going to organize, and making sort of those outreach kinds of plans. And then from last fall through now, really, we've been in this development phase of developing the content for the plan, having lots of different discussions, trying to get as much input as we can. And then as we move into later this spring and through the summer, we're going to be doing some more regional focused outreach. So we want to, Hawaii Island is really large geographically. And so we want to make sure that the different voices of our community members are heard and have a chance to kind of review what we've been collectively generating and to give feedback on that. So we're going to host some regional summits at the end of May and June, kind of 6 summits around the island, to get a chance to share with our community members how they can provide feedback. And we're hoping that those events are also kind of generative in terms of, having different service or resource providers available there, or having panels or programs that are interesting and valuable to the community present. And then we're going to have an island-wide summit on August 14th and 15th. So if anyone wants to come to Hawaii Island, that would be a fun time. So that's going to be in Waimea on Hawaii Island later this summer. And that's kind of the timeline when our plan will be presented. Ideally, we're hoping to have this draft plan ready to launch when we do our sort of regional summits, and then gather, feedback and make any sort of edits, continue to work on that through the end of the summer, and then that island-wide summit to kind of present and kick off the final plan in August. But just to share a little bit on the community food security part. some of the work that we've done is we focused on having regional meetings with service providers. So folks that maybe do community garden programs, and we don't have community gardens in the same way that City and County of Honolulu does. Like that's not formalized within our county, but there are still a lot of folks that do that education and community sharing and networking. So I guess that's what, when I say community gardens on our island, that's more what I mean. People that teach folks about backyard gardening, or maybe have a shared plot where folks can come and learn together, as well as folks that provide soup kitchen or, different services to increase that food access for our community. So we gathered those service providers in different areas of the island and heard like what's working well, what are their challenges, kind of what resources do they need. And that helped to inform kind of that funding program that I shared, that was to provide some resources and support, a lot of it around kind of storage and transportation of food that goes out to our community. And then we held regional focus groups, which invited participants who participate in different programs, who kind of are participants in community food security programs, to get their opinions and their vision for like, what does it look like from their point of view to have a food system that really serves everyone? Like, what would their ideal vision be? What foods would they eat more of if they had access to? Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so it was great to hear from the different regions of our, I went out of percent, but okay, let's see. Okay. Are we back on screen? Does that look good? Okay. So yeah, thank you. So regional focus groups were a really great way to hear from folks and to learn about their experience and what they really want to see, so we can make sure that's the vision we're working towards in our planning process. And then we also had a food access survey that went out, over 500 responses on that. And that went out primarily through like our different partners and some of the food basket partners, or places that we knew where folks were distributing food or convening around congregate feeding or coming to access some of those food and nutrition support systems. And then additionally, we've been doing some interviews, individual interviews with support of partner organizations, to hear from those that maybe have language access barriers and or have maybe transportation or mobility challenges. So we're making sure that we can try to get just some more diverse voices heard in that, maybe from folks who aren't able to come out to some of these other opportunities. And it's been really great to partner with a lot of the organizations that are doing this amazing work in our community in order to host these events. So that's been great. And then just a little update on how we're kind of structuring this plan and its content. So we're using a model that's called like a topic brief model. So as you can see on the screen here, all these colorful dots, these are various topic briefs that we're covering. So there's a bunch of briefs under products, things like commodities, maybe in the commercial market that we see, sort of coffee and cacao and macadamia nuts are some really big ones for us on our island. As well, we're looking at different infrastructure needs, so transportation and aggregation and distribution. Also like water infrastructure and different things like this. Some issues look at things like land access and waste reuse and biosecurity, different aspects that impact our agriculture and food system. Looking at markets, we kind of look at like institutional purchasing or export markets, or maybe resort and hospitality or end consumer markets, where some of this food's really going. And then under the community food security, we have things like subsistence and sharing networks, like community and school garden education, nutrition and cooking education, emergency food access. So that's kind of where some of those topics are housed. And each brief really highlights like a background with content kind of key data and trends, challenges and opportunities, and then moves into some metrics, some sort of like what's the data showing us, some goals, and then we're really focused on actions, right? Again, we want this plan to be living and to be engaging for our community. So we're looking at reaching out to our community to help to generate these actions, right? It's not all just what the county can do. We know we're really sort of, one aspect of our food system, but there's so many more folks that are engaged and that we each have different points of leverage and things that we can contribute. So the actions are also from community and from industry and maybe a combination of all of those, like government, community, industry. So that's kind of a big part of the process that we've been in. Again, the briefs, we're really looking at what's at stake, what's the background and current content, what are the challenges and opportunities, what's the data telling us. So for each of our topic briefs, we have this kind of information that we're exploring that's been gathered from existing research, and also from these community conversations we've been having and input from our wide networks. There's a space to share existing programs and opportunities. So programs might be sort of, an after-school gardening program that's happening, or things like this network, this Hui Māla network, or it could be particular services or technical assistance or funding sources or digital tools. So different things. It depends, like some of the programs are maybe our rural development programs or FSA, maybe some are federal, maybe some are state, or some are sort of combination, some of our different local organizations, what they're already providing. We want to make sure that we're kind of doing that network mapping. We hear a lot of that folks maybe just don't know always what's going on with others and what they're up to. So trying to just create a space of connection there. And then really focus on actions. We're really trying to be action oriented in this planning. So this is a little detailed. It was, for one of our events that we had, but in case any of you are interested or you know of actions that are currently happening or that you'd like to, that you're working towards, that you'd like to have included in our plan, we're really open to that. And there'll be opportunity. I'll have a link for you folks in case there's info you want to share. But again, actions they can be led by community, industry, they can be collaborative. Again, this is a 5-year plan, so we're hoping that actions are achievable in the next 5 years. Again, we wish we could do it all, but this is not just like the county should or really sort of like vague aspirational things. Like we want this part of the plan to be things that are really actionable, that we can see, even if it's just a first step, like what's the first step maybe towards that larger vision, and thinking through what would it take to get there. So is it a step that's advocacy? Is it advocating for a policy change? Is it advocating for funding for a program? Or is it the coordination or network of a development for people to have the conversation? Is it creation of a task force or working group? So those are some of the action types that we're looking at and looking for to include in our plan. And then all the actions will be filtered through a decision-making framework, which kind of just looks at, is it legal and feasible? Does it align with those guiding principles that we looked at earlier? Is this action really ready, like have a 5-year readiness? And maybe there's, if not, if it's a much longer vision, maybe there's a first step we can take and include. Also looking at, again, impact and equity. Is there a lead organization? We want to make sure that there's kind of accountability so we can continue to come back in and check on this plan after the development of this plan then goes into the kind of like, executing and monitoring and feedback. So we really want to make sure that folks are saying like, yeah, I want to take the lead on that, or I want to collaborate in that. understanding if there's other collaboration with agencies or departments, and of course, if there's funding needed, is there a pathway towards that? And then here's some invitation to collaborate. There's a QR code here, and I'll put a link in the chat when I stop sharing my screen. That is just a really brief form that you could just acknowledge if you'd like to receive the different topic briefs around community food security, which are highlighted on the slide here. So again, nutrition access, nutrition and cooking education, disaster preparedness, INA-based and gardening education, emergency food assistance, and subsistence and sharing networks. So we're ready to send out, maybe not all, but at least the first round of those topic briefs. And so if you're someone that would like to lay eyes on that and give any feedback or comments or share additional information that you have, or this is really a public comment period that we're entering. So we're really open to have your input and support and insight on that. We really value everyone's different experience and perspectives and expertise. So there's an open invitation there. And also on that form that I'll share the link for, which is also the QR code here, there's an opportunity to share if you know any existing programs and resources. Like, is there something that that's happening? Again, this is a Hawaii Island plan, but if there's things that are statewide that also apply to us, that's really great. We'd love to include it. And then if you have any actions, if you know things that are happening that you or your organization is working towards, we'd really like to know about those and be able to include those in our action plan in the plan. Yeah, and I think that's kind of all we have there. I guess I wanted to share also that one other thing that's happening for us as a part of this, of kind of not exactly the plan, but part of these funds, is we've been able to kind of set up some help support more access for certified kitchens on our island too. So if you folks know any folks doing community growing or backyard growing or anything that are looking for more access to kitchens to process their food, we do have a number of those available. So I'll put a couple links in the chat here. One for the form that I mentioned, and then a second one for the Hawaii commercial kitchens, if anyone's interested in connecting any of their folks on this island with access to kitchens. Thank you so much for letting me share that. And if anyone has any questions or wants to share anything, I'm happy to discuss that. And Anna will let us know how much time we have remaining. Thank you.
Yeah, we have a few minutes for questions.
I have to say that I'm jealous. That is that's a very thoughtful and well-developed plan. And I'm very impressed that you were able to collect 500 individual surveys. That's a level of outreach and commitment that is definitely commendable.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I should say that might have been between 2000. There was a survey in 2023 and then one in 2025. So that number might be a combination of the two. But thank you. Yeah, and I think it speaks to great community partnership. Just a lot of folks active and caring in this space, right? It's really our collective work. So any way that we can use the county resource and positionality and staff and things to forward it, but it's really our community's work. So we're thankful for that. And thank you for the encouragement. I agree. It's been a very thoughtful process. And it's complex and we're in the final stretch here. So send us your best and mark your calendars for August if you want to come be with us for that kind of final celebration.
Any other questions? Well, I can definitely send, if you put those links in the chat, I can also follow up in email to the larger network with those links as well. And if you can send me the PDF of the slides, that would be great to include as well.
Yeah, I can do that. Thank you. Oh, I see Meredith has her hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I just had a quick question because I went onto the QR code that you had posted, and I was just curious, what are you asking or looking for the members of this group to review to be part of that review process? What would be ideal, I guess, is because it looks pretty technical and I didn't want to sign up if depending on what you're looking for. So I just thought I would ask for
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah, thank you. I guess there's three things really on that form. One is, are you are you interested and curious and have the capacity maybe to review any of those topic briefs? Because if that's the case, we would send them to you and they're Google Forms and it just would be for making comments or suggestions, kind of like, hey, did you think about this? Or like, have you seen this data? Or, kind of like supporting, refining the development of those right there in draft. So moving them from draft to like something that's sort of final. So we're just open for input on that if that's interest. And it's not, obligatory in any way. There are maybe 5 or 6 of those community food security briefs. So you could just choose the ones that are most applicable to you or anything like that. And then there's another option is to populate any programs or resources that you're aware of to kind of support that network mapping to make sure that we include those in the plan. And then the third is if there are actions, and I don't know how applicable that is to this group. And I don't know everyone's individual work yet. Getting to know you folks is really nice today. And I know I'm doing a lot of the talking, so hopefully I get to listen more and know you more too. But if there are actions that your organization is doing or willing to lead on, or you'd like to have included in the plan. And again, the benefits of that are that we're raising the awareness about what's happening. And also we're highlighting kind of prioritizing those areas for investment, right? We're trying to say like, hey, this is where our community is really working and where they could really use support. So that's what we're trying to encourage there. Did that clarify a little bit? Okay, thank you. So it's all totally optional, but just wanted to share that invitation to participate. Thanks for asking.
That's good clarification. I appreciate you highlighting moments in your presentation, the elements that might be more relevant to Hui Māla. I'll definitely be taking a look on behalf of the work that we've done at Hui Māla to collect information about different gardens on Hawaii Island. And then also, yeah, I look forward to reviewing it myself. And of course, there's other folks in the email listserv that we have whenever I send out these emails that I think would definitely be relevant. Their work would be relevant to this, so I can definitely do that.
Thank you.
We have time for one more question, then we'll move on to the next presentation. Go ahead, Ati.
Hi, thanks, Leslie. Great presentation. I really appreciate your process, all the things that you all have been doing to engage. And in the interest of, crossing islands, I was wondering how much of your process can be shared with, like, I live on the North Shore and our farmers got really hit bad. And they're trying to reorganize here and figure out how to best serve them. I was wondering if there was any way that, if there was powers that be could reach out to each other and talk about that type of, collaboration. Is that possible?
Yeah, I think anything is possible if there's a way that we could be a resource to share what has worked for us or yeah, any of those. Yeah, I think we're really open to that. I know that also the city and county of Honolulu is working also on, and I'm not totally sure, some people on the call might have more updates than me on kind of a food system plan for the city and county as well. So I think that might be an applicable way for folks to get involved and be engaged. I'm not, I know there's sometimes friction between like county government and then community action, and especially, I'm so sorry to hear about all the loss and stress for farmers on the North Shore. And so I know that, yeah, like community activates on one level and it takes sometimes like county and government response can take a little bit longer. But if there's any way, yeah, that we can share or be a resource, I think we're really happy to. And then Jason Sean is the person in city and county I know who's really spearheading that kind of planning process. And our coworker, Sarah Freeman, is the food access coordinator for Hawaii Island. And I think that's part of Jason's role within city and county of Honolulu. And so I know that there's a lot of coordination and conversation amongst them. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, Ati, for that collaboration. I don't want to dictate that, but I just want to say there's certainly an openness. Yeah.
No, I appreciate, yeah, just you to folks talking to each other is huge, and just getting things done is closer now. And I like
Yeah.
the cross-pollination within the Pai'aina, and that's another aspiration for the Hui. We want to connect with each other and learn from each other. So there's all sorts of ways to do that. So thank you.
Yeah, and I see Alice put in the chat a link from the Transforming Hawaii Food Systems Together, a flood recovery resource. So Transforming Hawaii Food Systems Together has lots of amazing food system resources, and I haven't checked that one out, but I'm sure it's awesome too. And I'm not sure how connected you and Alice are, but I know she's North Shore also, and just a really amazing connector and resource too. So yeah. Oh, and look, there's a CTAHR resource. Um, yeah, the Wahiawa Value Added Product Development Center. So yeah, glad we get to network. Thank you. And I'll put my email in the chat too in case you want to follow up on anything. Anyone here, welcome to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leslie. All right, we'll transition over to Patrick Williams, who's the Director of the Office of Community Engagement and Communication at CTAHR. We thought it would be relevant to Hui Māla, given that there's many resources and programs within CTAHR that support the work of gardeners, like the Master Gardener program. We were hoping to have some Master Gardeners here, and we have Grace, who's training, but I think they're often out in the field. But we have Patrick, and we're so grateful. And so I made you co-host. If you need to share screen or anything, feel free to do so.
I'm a master gardener.
Oh, of
Happy to
course,
answer
Alice.
questions.
Of course, I forgot. Alice is a master gardener,
Intern.
and also Kate actually is a master gardener, and
Yeah,
probably others that I don't know.
I'm happy to share. I don't have I'm just going to talk through this. I very much admired Leslie's presentation. Mine will be a little bit shorter. I've been in this position for about a year. We are a newly formed group at CTAHR. As I'm sure many of you are aware, the college has new administration, like we have new deans, we have a new leadership group. I was brought on about a year ago to work on CTAHR's communications. In terms of our work in the community garden space, one of the things that we've really been tasked with is getting the word out about all of CTAHR's programs, not just, obviously community gardens, but a lot of other things. One of the ways we found it to be most effective, most effective, but I would say most effective, I should say, here on Oahu, is doing news events, because we are fortunate to have we have 3 TV stations, we've got a newspaper, we've got a public radio station, there's some online outlets. So we have done things like green onion harvests. We've also done kalo harvests. We've done seed giveaways. Those have really, I think, and actually Julia was the star of, I think, our seed giveaway back in October. I believe she wound up on the front page of the newspaper. So for us, at least in phase 1, it's really been getting that exposure, honestly, just getting people at CTAHR used to doing this kind of stuff, right? This is not something CTAHR had done anytime in the last couple of years, at least. So a lot of it has been getting people more used to doing more active and more proactive communications about what's going on. And as we're moving forward, one of the things that we're trying to do now is also work more through, and Leslie mentioned this very well, we're working through partners and community groups. Like, we're sharing the word not just like with the news media to get them come down and do a story, but also with partners like Catholic Charities, with other partners, so they can introduce their staff and their clients to come on down to our events. One of I think it was Julia's event, maybe the one after, Catholic Charities Hawaii sent a number of their caseworkers down to, I think it was a plumeria harvest, and they were gathering plumeria cuttings to take back to the different care homes that they worked at, as an attempt to it's really something, it makes the staff feel good, it makes their clients feel good. So that's really something that we're trying to do more of. And I do think in year two, part of that is just overall getting more organized. I would love to have a strategy such as the one Leslie presented. I don't think it would be as in depth, but I was again very impressed with it. And I think that would be something we can have an eye toward developing. I will admit a lot of our work has been here on Oahu. That's where I work out of UH Manoa, so does my team. And one of our goals is to do more work on the neighbor islands, not just with the news media, because obviously, like, you're a lot more limited with the news media, but that's where community groups become even more important. So it's one of the things that we would like to do just overall at CTAHR is work, at least my team, work more with community groups on the neighbor islands on our different programs, as well as publicize, as well as getting our events out. And really the goal of all of this is the goal of of gardening is really to help with food security, right? Giving people the tools and the knowledge to learn how to grow their own fruits and vegetables at home. I mentioned earlier we did the green onion harvest. That was a great example because we were harvesting green onions that have been grown at CTAHR's facilities, but then we were giving them to the community so they could take them home, plant them in their own gardens, and take another step toward their own home, their family's food security. So yeah, I mean, in year one, I think we've had some success in working, at least on Oahu, with local news media. I think in year two, we want to do more work with community groups, particularly with those on the neighbor islands. I'm sure you're all familiar with the bandwidth problem, right? We only have so many hours in the day to get things done, so we do have to prioritize things. But overall, I think one of the reasons I joined CTAHR was actually to help. I felt this was a good way to contribute to Hawaii's food security, and I do think community gardens, whether they're on Oahu, Kauai, Molokai, the neighbor islands, are a really good way to get that to help do that.
That's great. Um when I first came in my position about 3 years ago, I tried looking back at, the coordinator at the time left right as I came on. And so I didn't really have a good connection to who the coordinator here at the city and county was in communication with, whether that was other master gardeners or CTAR. And I was like, there's a natural relationship here, but I don't see any former communications or relationships. And so then I started reaching out to Tina. We've developed a connection, but I just was under the impression that's because there wasn't that kind of communication between us and them. But you're saying that a lot of this is actually just brand new. Were there resources put towards this recently? Is that why you're speaking like in term year one, year two, it's something new to CTAR to help with this?
I would say it's new to my office. My office is only I've been here a year. My team has only been around for about a year and a half. So we are, developing sort of an overall. We're finding our way through the communications at CTAR. We've never really had it's been a long time since CTAR had a strategic communications goal and direction. So that's one of the things we're working with, and a big part of that will be food security, and like that extends down to tactical things like um, home gardening, community gardens, um, events, and things like that. So I can't speak in terms of the college itself. I can just speak for my team.
Okay.
Like we're still a new team. We're still getting our feet under us. I do think of things, having wrapped up year one recently, I do think of things in those ways. Like, particularly as you guys know, when you're trying to move the needle on things like food security, it takes a while. It's not going to happen over a 3-day weekend. So that's why I'm sort of mentioning like year one, year two. And I will say, for the most part, people at CTAR have been very receptive. Julia was a little apprehensive about doing some media for her event, but she came through. But honestly, she came through like a rock star, and I would say that is true for all of the extension teams I've worked with.
Yeah, I also just have some additions. Sorry, I'm working on the nursery today, but I'm being pretty paying a lot of attention in the conversation. I also think that sitar or what I have been here, the history, now that I'm around 8 months on the position. Um, there was a focus on the past, at least for the extension agents, to being developing more the scientific research aspect, and now it's more outreach, and it's kind of have been more this direction to work together with the community more and more, and to change a little the focus to the research of some positions to more engagement and communication, and so I think it's something that it's coming from a learning process and from a kind of development of the positions. And I also think that this is a reflection of what you were saying, Anna, that it's kind of a thing that CTAHR is also looking forward to build it together, like in a more recent history, considering the long term that it exists, right? And definitely all the network that Patrick has with other groups, it has been really, really impactful. We can talk about the preliminary event in Waimanalo that had more than 100 people joining and subscribing to join. So we are being able to reach to kind of connect with a larger number of stakeholders and volunteers and groups, in part also because of this great network and work that they are doing on the communication department. And we are looking forward to kind of build this more and more. Um, I think that that is part of what you were seeing and expecting to see, and that is kind of a construction that it has been made on the department for what I have been seeing, Anna.
And I just jump in. I'm sorry, and I did skip over a little bit part in my presentation, in my talk. Dean Parwinder Greatwall he's new to CTAHR. He's been here about 2.5 years, and he really has a vision for CTAHR as a community hub, right? Like not just the college, but all the extension stations we have, all the work that they do. He really does emphasize working with the community, getting out there, engaging with stakeholders, right? One-on-one or in groups, like meet them where they're at. Don't ask them to come to Manoa. Don't ask them to come to an extension station. You go out there and you meet them. So a lot of this really does flow from his vision for the college. And so Anna, when you asked about have additional resources been allocated, I would say resources have been allocated all over the place in CTAHR, and we're in the midst of a really big transformation, a really big sea change. And yeah, Alice, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sorry, not a question. I just want to give a shout out to CTAHR because last year it was the first time CTAHR sponsored the statewide food system summit, and that really came through, and we just really appreciate the support.
Well, I wasn't here for that, but I'll take full credit for it. But thank you very much for the nice words. And again, I do think that's part of Dean Greywall's vision for like a CTAHR that not only does the research, the really good research, but also gets out there in the community. In the end, like we were created 120 years ago to serve the people of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the job. So, and the other thing I would just say is, to Julia's point, we've found audiences have been really receptive to stuff around community gardens. Like whether it's news media, email lists, social media, people it does seem to resonate with them. It does seem to strike a chord. If anything, I think for events, the last couple of events we did last year, we actually had to tone it down. We were getting too many people to our events, which is a happy problem to have, but like our infrastructure couldn't actually support, all the people who were coming. We didn't have enough bathrooms. We ran out of water. So, that's a happy lesson for us to learn. And it's also a fact, like, people, there's something, I mean, my personal feeling is like during the pandemic, something changed, right? We began to see like how vulnerable, we understood for the first time how vulnerable we are when it comes to food supplies and food security. And I do think people they're interested and engaged in topics like community gardens, like food self-sufficiency for their families.
That's really interesting. that you have sometimes the problem of too many attendees. And I also think that's interesting if there's also if your dean's mission is to go to where the people are at, having that and then also a place where people are interested in going to, it just shows the sheer amount of interest and um, I think need that people have for CTAHR, what CTAHR has to offer. Um, I heard a rumor, and I'm wondering if you could help me understand like the future of the Urban Garden Center. Because this is something that I know our gardeners really value having that place to go and learn hands-on these things. And I heard a rumor that maybe it's going to be downsized. Is that true?
I have not heard that. That's an interesting one.
It could be a fully incorrect rumor.
Yeah,
Julia, if you have any.
rumors do tend to do that. I do know CTAHR
Um,
is actively hiring. Like we've hired more faculty, we've hired more extension staff.
Okay.
I think in the past 2 years, they've hired more than 30 faculty, a combined additional 30 faculty and extension. And we have a bunch of extension positions out there. So I do know we're actively hiring. I have not heard anything
Okay.
about the future of the urban gardens. I've not heard anything like that about the urban gardens.
Okay. Because this was my impression because
um,
Julia's position, like the fact that there's a little bit more focus on that community level scale of growing food, which is great for, our gardeners in Hui Māla and what our mission, is aiming for. But then yeah, it didn't totally align with this other someone was like, well, I don't know if that's good. Anyway, Julia, please shed some light on
yeah,
this.
no, I definitely I have been heard that that is um interest in having more areas focused on commercial growers and home gardeners. I don't know how they will reorganize the research stations thinking on it. There has been a discussion that we can enjoy more Magoon area to some specific of the outreach and research and extension actions, and same here on the Urban Garden Center. And at any point, I heard that it will close or anything. What we have been discussing, at least from the level that I have been involved with, is this kind of maybe there will be an area that it is still on discussion that will have more focus on commercial growers in comparison to home gardeners and master gardeners and community gardens, like so maybe there will be a little more um, focus on, according to the research station, to some of those groups. But honestly, it's a pretty premature discussion, I would say. So I don't want to give any kind of, I neither know, and I cannot say much about it. But I definitely never heard about this possibility. So I really think that it's not correct.
Thank you for correcting me on that and giving some
Yeah,
because
I mean,
I
yeah, yeah, it's what I can say for now. I
yeah.
really hope so because I haven't been heard plans for here, right? So I really think that it's
Yeah.
to be continued.
I have
Alice?
a question. CTAR is statewide, and I'm interested to know. I know Master Gardeners has trainings on each, like in each county. So I'm like curious to know, like, what is the equivalent of Hawaii County's Urban Garden Center? Do we have like roster of like this those kind of services in the statewide? Because I do know Oahu tends to have a lot more resources potentially than other county. I think for this network as well, we're trying to expand to other counties.
That's a great question. Off the top of my head, I, I don't I can't think of an equivalent to the Urban Garden Center on the Big Island. I don't know, Julia, if you have any idea, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, to be honest, my position is in Oahu, so I have not been joining this kind of state trainings, and also I had some opportunities to do some trips, but as I'm pregnant on the late stage, I have not been joining trips to know other island research stations and things like that. So unfortunately, I have a lot of to learn too. But the course they change it, like in Kauai or in Maui, they have this kind of center and the research stations, but I really don't know how much they are in comparison to Urban Garden Center. Many times, probably they have smaller structures and also are newer areas. So it's hard for me to say how much they can be compared to urban garden center. Um, I think it's great that they are doing this training connected and the internet, Zoom, and these connections are kind of helping people to interact and making the discussions on the courses being more um, broad, like when they are discussing the passes and disease and the shares, they are not only thinking what is happening in one specific site, but they are discussing in a larger way, especially because there is this tendency to things in a long term to be spread and how we can avoid it. So I really think it's great that it's connected the course between the islands, but on a practical way on the ground, how it can be compared, unfortunately, um, I still don't know.
Yeah, I asked that question because like now Hawaii County, like from Leslie's report, there's a clearly needs for value-added processing center, this kind of facilities. I think CTAHR has numerous resources if there are opportunities to build capacity of creating, sort of resources, the place-based to suit the place-based needs. I think just something to keep in mind.
Definitely, Alice. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a great point, and especially like Ahiwa and this connection with the Gilward Community Garden. It's so inspiring and definitely necessary in other islands too. So totally, um, it's great that you are mentioning that, especially because we are having all these discussions of reformulating not only how we our staff are focusing our time, but also the focus of the research stations, right? So that's really great that you are mentioning that. Thank you.
Any other questions for Patrick or Julia?
I will
Patrick?
say, I'm just going to say, Kate, I used to work at the city and county, and Nate Sirota is just amazing. Like he's a really, really good communications pro.
Yeah, we love Nate. I'm also in the Parks Department. Kate and I are both here.
Oh,
We're actually sitting across from each other. And Nate's been, yeah, especially on it with a lot of the storm recovery work that DPR has been involved with. I wanted to just float, to you, Patrick, as you continue to develop outreach plan and, formally or informally for CTAHR, continue to think of Hui Māla as a potential outlet. Um, I get updates on classes and activities, through the Urban Garden Center just because I sign up for the Eventbrite thing. So I get them, and every now and then I include them in my email out to the network. And at the same time, I think it's best if people are signing up themselves for the alerts and updates through CTAR, that rather than me just like spamming too much. But I think there's definitely alignment there that we could continue to explore.
oh yeah, we would love to have you guys. We'd love to have events in. We have a monthly newsletter, email newsletter. We'd love to have you guys. You guys have stuff you want to, stuff you think that might be interesting to our audience. By all means, send it our way. And I'm happy to add whoever wants to be on our newsletter list, because the CTAR does work statewide. I'm happy to add folks to our newsletter list. We're also developing another newsletter that's developed specifically around research, which would include some of the research that extension work that extension people are doing as well.
Is there a link to easily sign up for the CTAR newsletter?
I'll send it to you guys later after this
Great.
call.
And then I'll add it to the email follow-up that I send out after every convening. It's great because I'd like to be on that. Um, definitely. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
This will be the newsletter email list that conquers the world.
Well, that's great timing. If there aren't any other questions or comments about the presentations today, I did want to leave the last 10 to 15 minutes for member updates. I never know what might come up, but I think it's helpful to have a space for anyone who's here on the call who wants to share um, what you're working on, if you think there's some important update or question or challenge or opportunity that you think would be relevant to the people in the room, this is the time to share. And there's no relevancy can be defined by whatever you think. Hui Māla is a broad-reaching topic of food gardens or food forests or, you know, farming. I'm sure many things are relevant in here. So leaving the space open. Anybody have any updates for us?
I
Okay.
always, sorry, I always leave every meeting. It's like, why did you talk so much again? But I did send a list. I think just piggyback to everybody just shared. I feel like the timing really is right. There are a lot of food related events, especially food system or why not? So I tried just to consolidate all the upcoming food related events statewide. I sent it to the chat. I know I definitely missed some, so please let me know. And there is an update. I think for some folks on the call is aware of the annual food system summit. I know Anna has attended the previous ones. Leslie and Dane was on the steering committee for last year. We actually just confirmed we are going to postpone the 2026 annual food system summit to summer 2027. This is to resetting the cadence to summertime because it gives longer time for policy planning, as well as the next year's theme is going to be a really, really big topic. So we really want to plan it well. It's not 100% confirmed, but I think it's going to be bioculture restoration and traditional foodways. So it's a theme that needs a lot of intention, but we are diverting our capacity to support Hawaii Good Food Alliance. They're leading a Food is Medicine policy convening in August, and then another Food is Medicine Summit in October. So that is another initiative I think is connected to everyone. I do have it in a list too. Those dates are pending, but please feel free to mark it on your calendars, and I hope to see some of you in person. Mahalo.
Thank you, Alice. It's great. Makes a lot of sense. Anybody else? If anyone is interested in, in the last couple weeks before the event, there's a community gardens conference called Grow Together in New York City, May 1st and 2nd. The registration for the second day has been open for a while, but then they just opened the first day registration, which is the tours to locations, food gardens, community gardens in New York City. I'll be there to present on the city and county's site selection process for a Sing Community Park, which is the location we've identified for a new community garden in Eva Beach. And we contracted Hunter to do geospatial analysis to help identify locations that meet our equity goals. And so I'll be doing a workshop with that. And I will be out for a couple of weeks around that, so you might not hear from me, which might be a welcome relief. It's been a lot of emails, especially as things have shifted and been postponed due to the storms. We are also continuing to plug away at the strategic planning with the National Park Service for the Hui Māla 5 to 10 year plan, I think, or maybe it's 2 to 5 years. We haven't figured it out yet. And that is going really well, and we're so appreciative to have National Park Service, RTCA, supporting with that. We are also having the leadership team is having other conversations about how Hui Māla can support more long-term flood recovery work. So I've said this before, I'll keep saying it. This is an open invite if people are interested in being in on that conversation to understand how Hui Māla or to help build, you know, the sort of response that we particularly could be supporting. Of course, we don't want to get in the way. We want to be mindful of how we can best support without burdening those who are, actively recovering. Um, I think that there's something that we have to offer, right? Because Hui Malai is a network, we have an email list. We have an email list of people, almost every single person I've met, either in real life or online, and we know each other, so it's a trusted network. And I've heard, and Ati has also helped, me understand this, that because in you can speak more on this if you like, but when you've been involved in the recovery work, you've learned that there's instances of anonymous people kind of attending and trying to support and end up being sort of um in worst cases there's been theft and there's been abuse of that, and in best cases it's just people who don't know how to help. So Hui Malai is a trusted network. We might be a volunteer resource in some way. We also have skilled people on our membership list. Every single one of us in some way has something to offer, so it's just a matter of finding out what that is. And I think that we're not responding immediately, we're responding intentionally and over time because we know also that recovery response often has a spike right after the event and then dies down even if the need continues to exist. So just wanted to plug that. If you're interested, email me and we're going to find a time to connect on this soon. Anything else? Do I send you all off to lunch? Okay, I guess I'm sending you all off to lunch. Thank you so much, Leslie and Patrick, again for being here and presenting. We'll be in touch for the follow-up email. And our next convening will be sometime mid-May as a sort of office hour, I believe. Yeah, I think we'll have our office hour in mid-May. So look out for that. And otherwise, aloha and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to be with you. Thanks,
Thank
Anna.
you.
Aloha, everyone.
Bye.
Great meeting.
Aloha.
Aloha, Wayne.